In today's video, we are going to talk about what it's like to be drug tested as an athlete. For those of you that are new here, my name is Jake Kaminski. I'm a two-time Olympic silver medalist in the sport of archery, and we're going to make this channel a great resource to all types of archery. So if you haven't yet, hit that subscription button and the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video is uploaded. I'd appreciate it. So throughout the years, I made my way up through the ranks of shooting archery as a professional archer, as a high-level elite competitor, both on the national and the international scale. And I've had to go through the multiple different levels of drug testing, of whereabouts declarations, of TUEs or therapeutic use exemptions, countless drug tests both in competition and out of competition. And I decided in this video I was going to share a bit about what it's like to be in the testing pool, what type of things you can expect if you were to ever get into the international or national testing pools, and, just some overall stories on how things can go. So I thought it would just be a neat change of pace, a different type of video to talk about types of experiences that I've seen firsthand through Usada or WADA. Usada is United States Anti-Doping Agency, which operates within the United States and operates under the same type of provisions and same rules that WADA does. WADA is World Anti-Doping Agency. Now, as an athlete of the USA, I had to register with Usada, who operated a testing pool for WADA. And then also when the World Anti-Doping Agency was testing people at a tournament, say at Salt Lake City, Utah, which is in the United States, Usada would be the people that were there doing the actual testing under the name of WADA. Now, they have to have certain qualifications to be able to get into that position. Not all Usada testing agents can be WADA testing agents, so you may not see the same people that you see all the time when you're getting tested. Now, there are two major testing pools. There is the international testing pool and the domestic testing pool, or the national testing pool. Each one has different requirements, and those requirements have changed over the years, and I'm going to speak to what I believe they still are based on my quick little bit of research that I did before I did this video. Now, they really haven't changed since I was still involved in the sport, although within the last decade they have changed quite a bit. So the domestic testing pool, you don't have to give a declaration of an exact time slot like you do in the international testing pool. So every single day of your life, your training regimen, your work regimen, your school regimen, anything and everything that you have to declare to USADA to say, I will be at this place at this time, and it applies for everything all the time. You have to tell them where you are, so when they come to your house or your work or your school or wherever it may be to randomly test you when you're out of competition, they will need to know where you are in order to find you. The national testing pool, you are less likely to be tested out of competition. You may be tested depending on if there is a tester in your area or a tester testing other athletes in that area that you live in. And so they may do a group of tests all in one day. At least that's how I found it in my experience. Generally, when somebody was in the area who was going to be doing some randomized out-of-competition drug testing, they'd come to an entire area of a region and basically hit every athlete on the way both to and from their workplace. So that way, they kind of do it in all one fall swoop. The international testing pool differs from the national testing pool on frequency of testing. You may be tested, depending on where your ranking is on the world scale, about once a quarter. The main difference between the national and the international testing pool is that the international testing pool, you have to guarantee you will be wherever you are for 1 hour every single day of your life. That means that you have to, before that day happens, you have to let USADA know where you will be for that entire hour. If you are not there during that entire hour and they come to your house to test you, you get a missed test. And 3 missed tests within an 18-month period is a 2-year ban from all competition, all sanctioned competition. Not being there during that hour can get you a missed test. Now, if there is an emergency, you could text the hotline to basically say, hey, I'm going to be at this place during that hour, or I need to change my hour and my location for this day. And as long as you do it 1 minute before that hour starts, you're in the clear. But oftentimes you forget. You got a doctor's appointment, you have an unforeseen thing, you go have coffee with somebody, or you go to dinner with somebody or whatever, and you forget about it. You'll get a call, hey, I'm here to test you, where are you at? And you're like, I'm not there. Well, you got a missed test. And ultimately, it just is a big, giant pain in the butt. And in my opinion, it's a really, really invasion of privacy, in my opinion. At least in the country that I live in, we have a really high level of respect for everybody's individual privacy. Yeah, Big Brother exists, whatever. But I just feel it's a bit overreaching in my opinion. As long as they know where I live, as long as they know where I work, I feel like that should be sufficient. But to guarantee I'm going to be there for the entire hour, 365 days a year, is just a bit, it's cumbersome and it's a bit annoying. Usually I would submit my drug testing hours at like 6 to 7 a.m. at the earliest allotment, saying I'm at my house, because usually I'm never outside of my house during those hours. But if you don't tell them where you are outside of that, and your whereabouts filing says that you're at your house, even though you're at work during that time frame that they come to test you, you still can get a missed test if you don't get there within a reasonable amount of time. Now, if you're really good friends with the testers, they can absolutely work with you some. There are some ways that they can work around that, especially if they know you on a personal level, or, you've been very cordial to them and very nice. They will come to you or allow you to come to them, and they basically they'll allow you to work the system just a little bit. But in different areas, it's very different for everybody, because, there are some really strict people out there, and these rules are rules for a reason. The theory is if you're not there during that hour, you could somehow clean up your act before you got to your test beforehand. And that's why they don't want to give you the opportunity to get back to where you should be for that test itself. Now, some other interesting things to note about actual drug testing is that there are different tests that they run for in competition and out of competition, and also different tests that they run for every different sport. Some sports they test blood and urine, and some sports they test urine only. Archery, luckily, is urine only. They don't have to test blood because they've really not found a reason to test blood. There isn't things that can be in our system for a very short term that is only found in our blood system that would actually help us perform better. There are other sports, like track and field and cycling and stuff, they'll do blood and urine anti-doping tests. But again, archery is just urine. Now, there is a different set of rules for in competition and out of competition. What that means is that drugs approved out of competition may not be approved in competition. And there is a resource that you can check. It's called the Global Drug Reference Online. It's globaldro.com, I believe. Or .org, one or the other. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to check that out. And you can actually see what drugs are approved in or out of competition, depending on if you're an athlete, a coach, which I don't know why they do drug testing for coaches, although I guess in archery they started doing breathalyzers not that long ago for the coaches. Internationally, apparently that's a problem. Anyway, the Drug Reference Online will tell you your threshold, how much you can take, the type of method you can take it by, and if it is approved in competition or out of competition. So that way you can decide if you can or cannot take any sort of drug. And that includes drugs over the counter. There are certain drugs over the counter that are not allowed in competition and are allowed out of competition. You have to be your own advocate as an athlete. You are the only one responsible for what you put in your body, and nobody else is. So if you're taking a supplement, you're eating contaminated beef, or you are taking a over-the-counter drug that has some sort of agent in it that is banned, you are responsible and you will pay the consequences for a failed drug test. There are even some things that are, very bland and mundane and, everyday things like energy drinks that if you have too many of those in succession, you'll actually get marked on a test for being questionable, and they will come back and test you again within rapid succession. Because sometimes some of those things can give a false positive or give a margin within that testing range that isn't good. As an athlete, you are 100% responsible for what goes in your body and nobody else, and there is very little way to appeal these things, and it takes years oftentimes to overturn appeals unless you're in a specific case or getting an expedited service, and sometimes that's just not possible. Now, something that is kind of a bit crazy to people who have no idea how drug testing works for professional athletes, it is way different than taking a drug test for a job. You're not going into a bathroom that is closed and private and urinating in a cup and then turning it in for them to analyze. They have to actually physically see you in person produce the sample into the cup from your body. So it is way different. They're making sure that you don't have a bag taped to you, or you're not dumping it from another container, or you're not borrowing someone else's urine or using your own that is when you were clean. there are ways that a lot of people in the past have gotten around drug testing, and they literally make sure that it is you going to the bathroom into the cup that they then test. And they actually have to visually check and make sure it's happening. So for guys, and this is a bit TMI and a bit ridiculous, but it's the belt line to the knees and the shirt up to the nipples. So you are fully exposed, and that is technically the only way that you are supposed to be doing a drug test is belt to knees, shirt to nipples, and that is how you are supposed to be there providing the sample so the tester can actually visually make sure that it is you going to the bathroom in that cup. It's ridiculous, and just, the first time that it happened, it was a bit shocking to me, and I think that it caught me off guard, and it was very uncomfortable for sure. But luckily the tester that I had was very seasoned, very experienced, and he knew exactly what he was supposed to be doing. Some of them really push the limits of what's comfortable and what's okay and what's not okay. And others are, a bit more passive about it and definitely more responsible. So the way that it is done to make people more comfortable is if there's a mirror in the facility, they can stand and just see your reflection in the mirror. They'll turn the sink on, make it rain water, because apparently that soothes people and makes them want to go to the bathroom easier. Whatever they need to do to help make the area a bit more comfortable, play regular music or whatever, they will work with you if you need help to actually produce the sample. Now, there are some other people, and I've had this happen internationally, and, there was a language barrier, so I couldn't talk to them about it. They got way closer to me and my body than I was ever comfortable with, and it was very, very uncomfortable, and, it happens. You still have to produce the test. When you're notified that you have to produce a test, especially in competition, you have 1 hour to produce your sample. It doesn't matter if you just went to the bathroom before the tournament ended and then they notified you for testing, but as soon as they walk up to you and say you've been notified and you sign that line, time has started and you have 1 hour to produce your sample. And sometimes, no matter how much Gatorade, Powerade, Pedialyte, or water you chug before you're ready to produce the sample, it can be difficult and you can come down to the wire. Drug testing is important. It's extremely important to make sure that competition is fair, competition is just, and the results are real. As an athlete, these are just some of the things that you have to do. And it's, as a competitor, I was okay with it because, if I wasn't testing, my competitors may not be testing, and how do I know that they're not cheating, right? And so I had to submit myself to the rules of whatever, they came up with in order to make sure that the entirety of the sport, the integrity of competition is upheld to a high level of standard. Some other weird things that you have to do is like when you're traveling overseas and you're going to be on a plane for more than 24 hours, which happens, or in an airport, I will submit my whereabouts via text and say, I'm on Delta Flight 697 flying from Shanghai to Seattle, and I'm in seat 27B. Come and find me. That's literally what I would text them, because you have to declare where you are every single day, and if you miss a day, you get a missed test. And so that's the type of level of scrutiny that top level athletes are under. Not all athletes have to do this. Not Major League Baseball players or things like that. They may not have to adhere to these same standards. But as far as the Olympic Committee is concerned, and if they are WADA and Usada based, for sure, they are doing this type of level of testing. Again, it is nowhere near the type of testing that you take at your workplace, and it feels, a bit like an invasion of privacy, but those are the rules that you have to play by because you expect everyone else to do the same. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, consider hitting the subscription button and the notification bell, as well as the like button. I would appreciate it. Also, please consider supporting my channel. If you head to my website, jakekaminski.com, there'll be info and links on Patreon, apparel, books, and equipment sales, PayPal donate button, a P.O. box to send things to, and above all else, please share this video because there's no better advertising than word of mouth.